Hey everybody, welcome to Seven Blessed Mama, and this is the oldest of my seven blessings. Okay. My fresh graduate here on her way to college in the fall, and she's here to talk about her experience as a veteran homeschooler. Well, I'm a veteran homeschool mom, and this is a veteran homeschool student, essentially.
Yeah.
So, you want to tell us? Let's start from the beginning, because we have people who are new to the channel, and I had the whole refreshing there. Take us back. When did you start homeschooling?
I think it was 2008. I don't remember how old I was. Oh, wait, hold on. No.
You're in pre-K.
4. So, I was 4 when we started homeschooling. Let's see.
So, what do you remember about when we started out homeschooling? Do you remember, or were you too young?
Yeah, I remember. It was fun. I mean, I liked school. I didn't like math. I didn't like math until like last year, but yeah, school was always fun. You got to learn things, especially activities. I really liked my humanities classes. Those are my favorites.
Okay, so you've basically been homeschooled throughout the entire time. Have you always enjoyed being a homeschool student?
Not always. Definitely when I hit middle school, it was kind of like hit some rocky points where I was just questioning everything, and not in the right way. I just felt like it wasn't for me at some point, and I felt like I was missing out. Even though I loved to preach when I was little, that I was not missing out on anything when I was homeschooling. But
in your elementary years, right?
Yeah, I loved doing that. Like, oh, it's awesome. But yeah, I did question homeschooling in middle school, and I went up to like the school we're close to register at some point. And the lady essentially turned me away because like I did so many advanced things. At the time I was doing dual enrollment as well, and the school didn't even offer it. So she was like, "Why do you want to come here?" Like, essentially,
we're not zoned for the best school in the district.
Yeah.
Just FYI. So I told her, I was like, well, our options are this and a lottery. And a lottery means that you may or may not get that. So
those waiting lists are long.
Yeah, it's real. So I was like, that's part of the bazillion reasons why we homeschool that you probably weren't aware of as a homeschool student, was that, me and Dad had decided that it was in your best interest to get to in order to get the best quality education, to not use our locally zoned schools, because sadly they were underperforming. I'm still very much so concerned about the local schools in our area and everything, and I wish those teachers well, but I just knew it wasn't going to be a choice I wanted to make for our kids, because I was in a position to where I could stay with them. So that's how that went. And she got an insight into that when this was 9th grade, when you decided.
It was 8th grade.
It was 8th grade going into 9th grade.
Okay.
Because you had started dual enrollment, so you were signing up.
Right,
you had signed up for dual enrollment, so yeah, it had to happen 9th grade when you were like, I'm over it, I'm done. Mm-hmm. Sign me up. And what can you if you don't mind sharing, do you mind sharing some of the reasons why you kind of felt like, was it like burnout from being homeschooled, or was it something else? What was it?
It was a source of, it was a kind of burnout, but not like academic burnout. It was more like a general being homeschooled burnout. Because I had a lot of low self-confidence, so I just felt like, I was weird. Like, I tell kids, oh, I'm homeschooled, and, back in the day, they just be like, oh, whoa, what is that? So, I was a weird person.
This was pre-pandemic homeschool, so no one really still kind of knew what that was. We kind of had some general ideas. People thought you were either out on the farm homesteading or something, or like Little House on the Prairie, or you were an actor kid. And those were me and Dad's references for homeschooling when we started. So I think people still kind of had pretty dated ideas about that, right?
Yeah, they did.
And you were kind of sick of it.
Mm-hmm.
So it was social because of just how you were feeling, with your confidence with your peer group, with your same age peers, right?
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, no one really judged me, but, I was judging myself. So in my mind, they would just forever think I'm weird. Even when I get older and then school doesn't matter anymore. So I just felt like enrolling in public school would be the right choice.
Okay. And so when we decided that we were going to go ahead and continue on with our homeschool journey and we were going to go through the high school years, did you have any concerns about, I guess, my ability to teach you in high school, or?
Not really, because, you proved yourself a pretty good, a pretty awesome teacher, organizer person. It was more like I knew it would be more of a burden because it's high school. Everything counts. You need more, you have to do more executive work, so, documentation, things like that, and then you had all the other kids. So, I knew at some point you'd be very burnt out over it.
And I have been. I'm not going to lie. This last year, what I call launching a child out of homeschool, no matter if you're launching them into four-year college, you're launching them into a trade, or you're just launching them out of your house, I don't know. It's a big undertaking. And I honestly think that this is a big undertaking even if you're in traditional school, because this is just an age where it's just a lot of moving parts. It's a lot of moving parts. You got to stay on people. Like she said, so much executive functioning and planning and timing. And if these are not your strong points, you're going to struggle. Okay. We had some moments.
Yeah.
We used to call those back in my day. We used to call them woosah moments. I forgot what movie it was. It was a movie. And so I guess it was kind of like a Zen thing, woosah.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay.
We had a lot of woosah, or what old Southern folks would say, that come to Jesus moment. We had to pray on that, because
yeah.
We had our moments there. But okay, so you liked homeschooling in elementary. You struggled through middle school. Considered going to public school and the beginning of high school. And then now that you're at the end of it, do you think it was all worth it?
I think it was. Because a lot of kids who go to public schools, they're kind of in a box because they have to do, things academically for what the school offers. If you want to take a college class, you have to consider if your school even lets you do that, or if there's loopholes you have to go through that are very complicated, or even if your school offers AP or an IB program. So I feel me doing dual enrollment definitely was because I had such a flexible schedule with homeschooling, as well as our school offered it, I could do it. So yeah.
Okay, so you like that you had the flexibility to have the type of education you wanted to have.
Yeah, and there are schools that offer that, but usually they're private.
Or in our case, we have, I think, a magnet school.
Yeah, magnet schools or charter schools.
Which, once again, we're back in the lottery.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. So it's a lot, like I said, it's a lot of little things you have to consider. But we were able to kind of just have access and not have a lot of barriers into planning something the way you wanted to plan it. Now, you still you took classes with dual enrollment. You took classes outside, with outside teachers online, and at the high school level, and then you took classes with me. What do you think? What do you think about those experiences? Those three different experiences. You already kind of spoke on dual enrollment, that you enjoyed that. What do you think about, I guess, online homeschool-based classes and then traditional, I guess, at-home textbook with mom for high school?
Well, when, I first started out into high school, you always told me, slacking off on work, definitely won't work because you have to meet deadlines. So having teachers that were outside of you were learning experiences, okay, I missed this deadline, but next time I know I had to get it in or else I'll get a poor grade. And also, learning that, it's the same with you. Because, even though I consciously was not trying to like slack on every class you taught me. It was kind of like, well, I mean, this is my home class. I have some time. I have time.
She tried to be really flexible with my due dates.
Yeah.
But I seen so much more respect for the due dates for the outside instructors. That's just what it is. I'm not gonna lie. I seen her be very diligent to get stuff in on time, and I think over time I had to learn. It was a process. Like, I didn't start off that way at the beginning, but towards the end, I really got strict about this is my protocol for when I need stuff turned in, and this is how you know it's been turned in on time, and this is the grades, and they're gonna stick. Like, I had to be strict like that, but I had to learn that because I was so flexible with learning the mastery in the early grades that that didn't really work for high school. It was more like I had to kind of like set out a syllabus, with some, parameters, and that was different for me. It was. I had to learn how to be more assertive and accountable. We both had to learn how to be accountable to each other in that way. Because also there's the part of like, you turn in the work, but then I have to make sure I grade it to get it back to you, instead of saying, oh, I'll grade it this weekend. Oh, I'll give it back next week. And then by the time I give you something back, you're like, I don't even remember what this was about. Like, we both had to be accountable in that way. So it was definitely a learning curve. And now that I got it down, the next siblings are going to benefit from that.
Yeah.
Sad to say, a lot of times these older kids are the tester, little bit of an experiment.
Yeah.
Yeah, but so that was something that you said. Okay, so let's talk about curriculum. Right? Everybody loves curriculum, especially homeschool moms. We love to talk about this all the time. How important has curriculum even been to you as a homeschooler throughout your homeschool journey? Did you even care what curriculum you were using?
I cared with certain things, but with overall, it didn't really matter. It didn't matter if we stuck to one curriculum, which was something that actually never happened, because with having a flexible education, things will always change, especially when you're tailoring your education to like how you learn or how you feel like will teach you the best. So most of the time, we use different curriculum throughout the school year for one subject. And I think that it gets important for certain core subjects, like English, definitely math, humanities, you can definitely, pick which one you feel like would do the best for you. We went through a few humanities curriculums too, but definitely English and math should be set in stone. Because like we learned that once we got to the end of high school, it was kind of like, we've done so much of that, like, and where are we, how much information do I know? Like, I didn't really know how to write an essay until like junior year, because we switched to IEW.
Yeah, IEW was a game changer. I don't know why I held off for so long. For years, I used to see it, and it was super popular, and I think I'm always weary of like the very super popular curriculum, like, oh, it's a bandwagon thing, maybe I should just like stay away from it. But literally, it was a game changer. Moving forward, I'll be using some form of IEW with all of my kids, so definitely it helped her. She took the ACT with writing portion. I'm not going to say her score, but she did very well. Okay, she did, I think, like top 75%. And that was due to IEW. Most definitely. Now these scores are not even relevant because nobody cares anymore. So she's at that. She was right on the cusp of when the testing mattered, and then people were saying that it didn't matter. So you were at the border of.
But then that's the thing
throwing
as
away
well
the testing
with homeschooling as well.
What?
The testing thing.
Okay.
So like the standardized tests, ACT and SAT, before you'd use them to gauge whether or not you're ready for college. And then a lot of colleges were test optional this year and going to continue being test optional for this coming applicant pool. But I noticed a lot of private schools specifically and some state schools require tests for homeschool students.
Yes. So even though they said test optional, when you really dug into it and you asked them specifics for homeschool applicants, specifically from those who are coming from an unaccredited route, because basically traditional homeschoolers are unaccredited unless you go through an accredited program or something like that. But they were asking us to take the exams anyway. And this was during COVID. Yeah. So one time I had to take her to an ACT when she sat one time, and it was like the line was literally wrapped around the entire school building.
Yeah, because so many students had missed out on the beginning of the semester because like the schools shut down of like large COVID impact.
Yeah, and they had canceled the one that was closest to us, so we had to drive like, how long was it? Like 45 minutes away?
Yeah.
We had to drive.
It was in like a whole different county.
We had to drive like 45 minutes out and stand in line for almost 2 hours for her to take that test. I think that was one of your better scores, wasn't it?
No, the better score was when I was trying to get another baseline. The second time I took it during the summer before. So I took the test 3 times in the summer. First time was the baseline score. Second time was when I actually got a good score. And then actually all the rest I got a score lower after that. Because a lot of anxiety, stress was like a huge factor of that. So we just used the good score that I got in the summer.
Because luckily now they have that thing called super scoring, which you guys want to look into that. Definitely it helped because she did her best on the English on one test, and so they gave her that score, and then the math came up, and then she was able to use the higher math score. So they took the best of each test and then gave her a super score of that. Some elite private schools don't take super scores.
Yeah.
So keep that in mind as well. They want it to be like you go in one time and that, bam, you knock it out the park.
Because the super score, it averages your good scores together.
Yeah. So it's kind of like how some schools will take your transcript and it's weighted GPA and they'll unweight it. They'll do that sometimes. So, it is what it is. But it was all good. So at the end of the day, it still turned out good for us. That wasn't everything. She had really good community involvement even through the pandemic. You want to talk about some of the ways you kind of stayed involved even with the shutdown?
So let's see. Once COVID started, all the extracurriculars I did essentially like stopped meeting up. With the exception of math circle, that was a very easy switch to online. Because we were doing math puzzles, so we can do that over a Zoom call. But like big extracurriculars such as like robotics or volunteering at the library. Libraries were all closed during the beginning of the pandemic. So I joined a journalism publication for teens. And basically how they work is that we worked online, and because it's journalism, we're writing articles. The switch to Zoom for them was a tad bit easier than some extracurricular activities or after-school activities. So actually that was pretty much the only extracurricular I did up to senior year, essentially. So the pandemic started beginning of junior year? Yeah. So, going into junior year.
No, it was in the middle. It was the second semester.
So it was in the middle?
It was second, because it was March. So you had started classes.
2020.
You started, you were in the middle. I remember you were in the middle of class.
Oh, it was end of sophomore year?
Literally, I was getting ready to drop you off at class one day.
Yeah.
And then they told you to go home.
Yeah.
And then
it was a dual enrollment class for math. That was when the pandemic started.
I don't think we can keep saying those words. I hope they don't do something weird to my video. But okay.
Oh yeah, the keyword thing.
The keyword. Yeah. Okay. It's been a long time since I've done it. Well, look, it is what it is. Y'all know what happened. The thing that happened.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go with the thing that happened.
Okay. So you had to find like activities that were able to get a successful switch online, or were online to begin with, because maybe they had like students from all over the country. Um, So that was kind of like my criteria for finding extracurricular activities going into junior year. I couldn't volunteer at all, so that was off the table.
You did get volunteer hours through the workshops that you did with your publication.
Oh, yeah, it came with it. But I'm saying, like, if I hadn't joined the publication, then,
You wouldn't have had anything.
yeah.
You're talking about the type of like she used to volunteer physically in the community with
Like,
the
going
public
to,
library.
Like, homeschool conferences, the library.
Yes, homeschool conference, participating with that.
Especially the library.
When she was with robotics, they did a lot of stuff with the Girl Scouts and all these other groups and things like that. I mean, there were so many things that they did. But she did, I think, pull together a good amount of things that she was able to do despite that. And I think she wrote about that too. That's the other thing. They love to hear, colleges love to hear a good perseverance story. They love that. So
Yeah.
she was able to write about that for her Common App application essay. Some of that and everything like that. So, I think they understand. This was a weird thing that students had to get through. But you definitely want to figure out a way to have your students kind of talk about that if they were affected by that. I think we're still going to be looking at like another class or two of kids that are like one or two more grade levels of kids that are going to graduate, like class of 2023 and 2024.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to have some of that.
Yeah.
So we're not quite out of it.
But it's at least slightly more easy for them, since, like, the class of 2021 and 22 were kind of like the test rats for like this whole school situation, so yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to talk about, so we talked about your extracurriculars, we talked about curriculum and stuff like that. You mentioned some things to me when we were kind of having our like heart-to-hearts about homeschooling, and we touched on it a little bit in the beginning about the socialization thing. You had brought up some great points. As homeschool moms, especially with homeschoolers in the younger years, we're always talking about how we like to bust that socialization myth. And to a large degree, we're right. Socialization issues are a myth. And I think up until a certain point, I think that point usually is high school. And I'm going to tell you why I think high school is awkward and hard socially on our homeschool kids. And it's because, first of all, there's less homeschoolers that homeschool all the way through high school. Okay, because I can tell you all of her friend group that she came up with, we were almost like the last man standing. I pretty much know of like 3 families out of like 50 that stayed the course all the way through high school. Okay, so that's what I'm saying. Like, if you look at most homeschool groups, co-ops, associations, it gets really thin towards the upper grades. Mm-hmm. So definitely there's some things there to consider socially. You want to talk about some of your something you want to add with that?
So basically, like, usually, I know there's like homeschool co-ops, which are a big thing in elementary and middle school, or like, there's some well-established co-ops like Classical Conversations, and then there's, just getting together with other homeschoolers for events. So, that's pretty much, a good amount of, like, we see other people, that are not, like, our neighbors or something. Like, you have kids, they're able to interact with each other, and I think that's pretty good. Like, park days as well are a good form of, like, social outings for kids. But there comes a point when they get older where, like, that's just not really, it doesn't always suffice. Like, I understand that, the amount of people who even homeschool through high school is sometimes very low, especially in like your community. You only know like maybe one or two people who are homeschooling through high school, so all the co-op activities are for little kids, and all the park days are, it's kind of just awkward. All the older kids are just staring at each other. So I think, letting your older kid, meet people. Maybe they meet someone at a camp, an academic camp or a summer camp. Maybe they just, meet someone in their neighborhood. They're like, oh, we're the same age. We want to hang out. You know, just starting to do that. I kind of did that on my own a little bit, going into like sophomore year of high school. But it was actually really hard to do because I just felt like going to all these co-op events, these park days, or just these homeschool events in general, like that's where I met people. I essentially became like pacified to the idea, like that's how I'm gonna meet people. So it was hard to make friends off the street or maybe even in a workplace. And that was very difficult for me because I realized junior year I was like, wow, like this is my first real friend I've made on my own.
Yeah.
And that's when it became like a reality. Like, the socialization myth is a myth up until high school.
Okay.
That's where things do get awkward.
Okay, and so you were saying, I remember we were talking, you were saying that moms need to recognize that there comes a point where you have to stop making play dates for your kids.
Yeah.
And the homeschool community, whether we call it play dates or not, we do make play dates for older kids, like kids that are way too old for play dates. Like, what is an age where you think we need to start letting you guys initiate relationships and connections on your own? Like, what's a healthy age, you think?
Like 11 years old.
Like 11?
Yeah, like I know high schoolers, like whose parents would just be like, okay, you met that person, like, so do you want me to get you guys together to go hang out somewhere? Like, that's something that the student initiates, if they want to. So definitely helicopter parents, they show when their kid gets older. And it's like, what are you doing? Why are you planning play dates for this kid who's like 13?
And it's not that we're chastising you, Mom. Obviously, this is a mistake I made too. So yeah. It's not like we're talking about, like, if it's hitting you and you feel a little sting, well, I felt it too, obviously coming out of my own child's mouth. So, it's like I said, this is good stuff though, because I still have kids at home. I have 6 more to go. It's really helpful that we're at a point in our relationship where we can have these type of talks and we can go over, like, what worked, what didn't work. And this happened to be one of the things that she was saying, like learning how to initiate friendships on her own that were not coordinated, and having interactions with people outside of extracurricular activities too. Because see, we didn't just have stuff with the homeschool community, because I was really adamant that by middle school we needed to have extracurriculars that involve the greater community. So you've been around public school kids and stuff like that, or private school kids. That's not the issue. The issue was that it was still structured and planned, right?
Yeah, and I think that especially as a homeschool kid, you have all the opportunities essentially to meet different kinds of people, different ages, different backgrounds, different religious backgrounds. And because people who go to traditional school, usually all the people in their class are the same age. And sometimes, they have different backgrounds, but sometimes you have the same background people. And I think as a homeschool student, my mom taking advantage of the opportunity that I can go meet different people, like, it really helped because, that's like a true liberal arts education. Like, you meet different people as well as you're learning about different things.
I got that idea actually because, I'm originally from Chicago, and one of our great educators, Marva Collins, okay, from the west side of Chicago, my side, okay, she used to say she wanted her students to be citizens of the world. And I just remember that movie where Cicely Tyson played Marva, and I just remember how she was telling her little students, we're going to be citizens of the world. And I'm like, I want my kids to be citizens of the world.
Yeah, that's a real thing, because I have seen homeschool parents who, they have all the opportunities to expand their horizons on meeting different kinds of people, but they purposefully only socialize with one kind of people that are alike to them, and that can be very harmful when the kid gets older, because then your kid gets older, they grow up, they move out eventually. It's culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very large amount of culture shock, and that's not something you want as a kid or as kids' parents.
Okay, I thank you for coming on here and talking about your homeschool experience in general, and being at the end of the journey. I want to have you back on where we kind of go over some more nitty gritty specifics about certain things. Like, we kind of touched on curriculum a little bit, but I do know that you had some fond memories of certain like homeschooling styles and homeschool curriculums, and then in good ways and bad ways. Mm-hmm. Right? And so I kind of want to talk about some of those, because a lot of moms like to know, like, well, did that program actually do what I thought it was going to do, or did it, did it really matter? Like, we want to talk. I want to talk about what made you look back and be like, oh, I remember that, and then what you're like, oh, if I had children someday, I'm never homeschooling with that. Like,
Yeah.
I definitely want to have you back on to talk about those things, and maybe if we get any questions from this, we can come back on and do another Q&A type deal.
Yeah.
So far, I didn't get any particular questions. Everybody was saying they're just, whatever we want to talk about,
Mm-hmm.
And so this is general, but we're open to questions. You can post them below, and we'll, we can put together a part 2 or whatever. So this is just like a homeschool graduate chat, All right. Thanks for coming on.
You're welcome.
All right.